طيب هذا حديث عظيم جدا، وأحسن من رأيت تكلم عليه ابن القيم رحمه الله تعالى في كتابه شفاء العليل في مسائل القضاء والقدر والتعليل. والحمد لله أنت الحمد لله تدرس بالعربي، لكن لنا أكثر من محاضرة في شرح هذا الحديث وما يؤخذ من الفوائد والأحكام في ضوء كلام ابن القيم. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. حديث عظيم، وفلاح العبد وسعادته يدور يعني على هذا الحديث، الاستعانة بالله على الشيء الذي ينفع، وعدم الركون إلى الماضي, blaming the past, getting caught up لو أني فعلت كذا لكان كذا. يعني if you just think about the psychology behind this hadith as well, a person being stuck in the past and a person not taking accountability and a person not submitting to what was meant to happen. No matter what you did, is done. It's the qadr of Allah. So that's the hadith that he's asking about. Seek Allah's help, working hard upon that which benefits you. And I think the last time that we spoke on this hadith, we were in Leicester in the UK. We spoke on this hadith, and we spoke on this hadith as well. The benefits pertaining to this hadith. Now, that's a tremendous hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu alam. Inshallah, I'll show you if you want Ibn al-Qayyim's kalam. You can read it. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. I don't know. Is it time now?
Yeah. 1 minute.
Khair, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Make the adhan. If there are questions, I don't mind taking them. And if the questions from a line, we'll see after the adhan. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan.
What time is it?
No.
Okay.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Salam, Gareth, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Good.
What's the name of the book?
That we finished?
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can PDF.
Yeah, I can airdrop it or whatever. It's mojud.
All right, cool.
Yeah, it's easily, yeah. Let me know.
All right, thank you.
طيب, first question. It's coming from J.A., Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. I'm close to finishing reading The Sealed Nectar and came across the story after the conquest of Mecca where the Prophet ﷺ dispatched platoons to eliminate the last symbols of pre-Islamic practices and 2 occasions when the platoons were sent to destroy statues of a goddess, they came across a naked black woman with wild hair, and they were instructed to kill that woman along with the statues. Can you give a brief explanation on these women? Jazakallahu khairan. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Well, first and foremost is the Seerah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. There are things which are authentic, and there are things which aren't necessarily authentic. There are things which may have weak chains of narration, but they're well known and accepted. And there are things which aren't accepted. What's important is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's job in Mecca was to purge and to clean and to wipe out any traces of polytheism. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's policy of Mecca was known. He forgave, he was tolerant, he was forbearant, and no one was put to the sword unless it was an absolute must. Whether it was a man or a woman. This one is holding on to the curtains of the Kaaba. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Hakada." This one kicked him out of Mecca. He forgave him. So anyone that was put to death during the conquest of Mecca, that was a necessity, regardless of whether we know the specific details or not. That's what I'll say with regards to that. So those women or that women, the dynamics, the logistics of that story, exactly what happened, so on and so forth, we know for sure, yaqinan, is that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turned away from many people that were his enemies, but there were some people, for one reason or another, had to go. And there was a reason why they had to go. Whether they were women or men, whether they were Arabian or of African ancestry, etc. That's a fact in the Seerah. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Next question is coming from AM from Schenectady, New York. Are you going to be having classes on Thursday now? Inshallah ta'ala. We'll see what the schedule was feasible. Bidnillahi ta'ala. AR from Oakland, California. Assalamu alaikum. Is chewing khat haram? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Many scholars hold the view that khat is haram and that it is an intoxicant. And there are other scholars who say that khat at worst is makruh, it's disliked, it should be shunned. They say it should be avoided. That's an argument in itself. What's important is that many things in Islam are declared or deemed to be haram because of what they lead to, what's behind the thing. So if you look at khat and the habits that are formed because of it, let alone addiction, if you look at financial, economic crisis, famine, starvation, and I'll share you one story with you. When I was in Yemen, obviously a lot of people chew khat, if not most, but for sure a lot of people. And I'll never forget when I would see people begging for money at the masjid. They didn't have money to eat or drink. They would have little kids that were starving and hungry with them. And that's after Salatul Isha. When you leave the masjid and you go to buy some bread or some food, some groceries to take home to your family, you see those same people that were begging for basic money for food and drink in the line buying khat. So if they're needy, they're poor, they don't have enough to eat, their children are clearly malnourished, but they have enough money for the khat. That's a problem. And one time we took a bus ride and we went to Aden, if I'm not mistaken. We were driving to the south. And we passed by so much farmland. Beautiful green. Oh, you said to Allah. You see the different pastures, you see the pieces of farmland that were covered, some were open, etc. So I said, mashallah, it's a lot of crops. Why are people hungry and starving? What's the problem? What's the issue? Everywhere I look is green. And the guy on the bus, he told me, he says, everything that you see, all of these farms, kulluha, is khat. So the concept of people being in a crisis, but they still have enough time or money or effort or ability to take khat and to chew khat, clearly proves the vice of khat. So even if the thing isn't necessarily haram itself, looking at what it leads to, it's mafsada, like cigarettes. Somebody can make the argument, well, cigarettes don't cause you to be intoxicated. It's like eating onions and garlic. It may have a bad smell, etc., etc., etc. Okay, but you look at the habits that are formed through cigarettes, the money that's spent on cigarettes, the harms of cigarettes, secondhand smoke, etc., 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 etc. So that's my advice with regards to chewing khat. I wouldn't advise anyone to do it, to buy it, to sell it. Is it haram? As I've said to you before, some scholars hold the view that it is, and there are other scholars who say that it is not. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Initials AA from Montreal. Assalamu alaikum, Sensei. Is playing chess haram? There are different views of the scholars of Islam with regards to chess. Is it haram? Is it disliked? Etc. Me personally, from what I've studied and from what I've read from the ulama of Islam, I don't believe that chess is haram in light of conditions. And of course, those conditions are the chess cannot inhibit you. It cannot force you to abandon your Islamic responsibilities. But there's some hypocrisy and double standard that we have when it comes to chess. Many people that say chess is haram because it takes so much of your time. You won't be able to pray, etc. So, well, basketball, video games, talking about politics, fishing, this recreation, this game, this sport, what does that do? You want to see Muslim children, you want to see who they worship, go to the basketball court. You want to see the people that they love, the people that they fear, the people that they're devoted to. You want to see their heroes, the people that are in their hearts. Go to the basketball court. The grown Muslims, let's not beat up the young guys. You want to see the people that they worship. Look at the soccer, how they follow soccer, how they love soccer, how they devote themselves to soccer. This team loses, they're heartbroken, etc., etc. They'll sit in front of the TV screen for hours at end just to see one goal. It's not like football, basketball, 35-27 is the score, 21-8, touchdown, 3-pointers. They'll spend 3 hours to just watch what? Am I making this up? 1 or 2 goals. So there are many things that people do out of sport, of recreation, which wastes time, kills time, and prevents Muslims from doing their Islamic and their worldly obligations. And you can't just beat up chess. Other things that take away your time as well. Gambling obviously applies to chess and applies to other things as well. Somebody may say you're playing with idols. There's a cross or a crucifix on the king. There's the knight. There's the rook. There's the Christian bishop, the Catholic bishop, etc., etc. And there are many other things that people use and play with that are idols as well. Whether the dollar bills that you have in your pocket, the quarters in your purse, and the list goes on. So if you're going to say that chess is haram or disliked, then you have to apply that fiqh to many, many, many other things and icons. The Adidas symbol, the Apple symbol, many different things, right? So I would say, wallahu alam, if it's done properly with the proper conditions, I don't know of any text from Quran or Sunnah that prohibits it. And many of the Salaf al-Salih, as Ibn Abdul Barr and others have mentioned, they played the game. There's a very interesting story behind the game, and there are many relative modes of thinking that are relevant for the Muslims today. And from that is things that are monopolized, things that people have monopolized, and they have become the guardians of. But in reality, it was older than this civilization. They were playing it. They made the game hundreds of years before they even had thought about it. But the first thing you think about when you think of chess is people from this country and of this skin color. That's a problem. There are many different types of technology, many different inventions, many different things, contributions to society today that come from different civilizations. But one civilization or another takes it and monopolizes it. And what do the Muslims do? They accept that narrative and they fall inferior to those people that are superior because this is what they made. This is what they have. They're the ones who created it. It's the modern world. But if you read history and you study, it says that's not actually the case. Rather, a person who had different skin color, he created that game. A person who's considered to be an inferior, third-class citizen, savage person, he was the one who invented this instrument. He's the one who contributed this, who discovered this. And that has a huge impact on the world in which we live today. And it lies no doubt that there's a major inferiority complex between Muslim and non-Muslim, Western society and Eastern society. That's a fact. We don't go too deep in that right now. And many people, they'll leave Islam, or their Islam becomes warped and twisted because of that mindset. Technology, the West, innovation, society, civilization, taqaddum, this, and that. And everything from the lands of Muslims is old, outdated, dirty, archaic, medieval. And the reason why we're behind and why we're lacking is because of our deen. The beard, the hijab. You can't drink this, you can't eat this. That stuff is, that's not even from Islam. That's just culture. Arab culture is to dress to cover up. Right? You get the point I'm trying to get to. So it's dangerous. Let alone some of the benefits of playing chess, such as responsibility, strategy, sacrifice, foreknowledge, looking ahead, not thinking about the moment, planning, executing, right? There are many hardcore lessons that are 10 times more deserving of your time and attention than basketball, football, cricket, soccer, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Wallahu alam. Next question says, MS from Melbourne, Australia, is consuming eggs makruh? I wouldn't say that. I don't know of any text that makes it makruh. Wallahu alam. Questions come from AD. It's not mentioned. MS from Dallas, Texas. Can Jumu'ah be made at university? What conditions must be met? Yes, Jumu'ah can be made at university. And the conditions that must be met is that there should be 2 to 3 people there. It doesn't have to be 40 or 70 or 300 people or 12 people. If there's enough for a normal Jumu'ah, then the Jumu'ah can be made, and Jumu'ah at school should be made. The dhikr of Allah should be established, the teaching, the da'wah should be established, and Muslims going to school, they need Jumu'ah oftentimes more than those who don't go to school. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Khairan, inshallah ta'ala. The last question that we'll take before the Iqamah is coming from AK from St. Louis, Missouri. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. When I asked about the Qareen last night, I meant, does it know your inner thoughts and feelings because it is within you? The question is understood. And hopefully the answer is clear and understood. There are things that the Jinn and the Shaytan have been given by Allah which are extra or paranormal to us as humans. But it doesn't mean that they know the unseen, the absolute unseen. And it doesn't mean that they have the ability, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah comes between the man and his heart, no one else. Allah is alimun bidhati sudur. He knows what's contained in the breast, nobody else. So if you mean that the jinn is with you or the shayateen are unseen, they have certain powers, they're with you, that's one thing. That's not the same as saying or believing that they have a power and an ability to know what's in your heart that only Allah knows. No. As we said last night. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Sallallahu sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.